Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Roots of the Valley. I'm your host, John Franklin, and today I am in the Central Washington Agriculture Museum with John Kobli. He's the Vice President. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Nice to see you, John.
John, today our topic of conversation is apples, a very large part of Yakima's history. And you used to pack apples, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I actually started. My dad started his first warehouse in 1957. I was 6 years old when they built that warehouse, and it was very close to our home. And I was around that the whole time that he was doing that, not necessarily working on the packing line and that. But then that part of that business dissolved, and so what happened is then my dad in 1964 started his second warehouse, which is right in the heart of downtown Tieton.
Oh, wow.
It was called Kobli Larson Fruit Company. And they started packing apples there. And I actually helped that summer when they were building that warehouse. I was a young kid and I would go down there and I was feeding blocks and things like that to the guys that were building the walls. But anyhow, I started working with just sweeping floors and cleaning up at night and doing things like that. And then after I graduated out of high school, I went to work with them and I worked every day there. Again, I worked right on the packing line. I took the shook and put it out there. I made it segregated. I ran the stapling machines and things like that, because that's how we put the boxes together, because they were cardboard boxes at that time. I might have run the dumper. Anything that had to be done, I mean, I just stepped into the places where they needed help. So I was always a part of it, and then eventually truck driving and everything else that was involved in it.
Okay, so speaking of the packing line, how did the technology look when you first got started all those years ago?
Well, when we got started in that, even in the warehouse that we built in 1964, that machinery that we had in there, which happened to be a Cutler system, was what it was, which is very similar to the machine that we have standing here next to it, which is built by the FMC company, which is Food Machinery Corporation, which was a company that was here right in Yakima. And so the machines are very comparable as machines, and that's what we started with. So those machines were built in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
So we were using that. They were a 2-lane weight sizer, and that's what we started with. We had 3 sections in the warehouse. So that was it. That was technology in its day. You know, that's what we had.
Yeah, can you show me how it works a little bit?
Well, of course.
So tell me, what does this part of the machine do?
Well, this part of the machine here would be the very beginning of it, where we would be taking the fruit that came from the field, which would be like in a box like this. This was back in the day when we were doing that, and I'm talking about like in the 50s. And this particular machine right here is called a leaf eliminator, and what the reason of that machine is for, it's just a series of rollers that are in here. When you're picking your fruit, you're going to get leaves that came off the tree as you've been picking. Well, you have to be able, you don't want to put that into a packed box. So you'd be putting your fruit on here, the fruit goes across these rollers and the leaves would fall out, and then you could collect those up later and get rid of them. But then you would have clean fruit that would go into your brusher, polisher, and no leaves. And that's what this particular machine does. It also regulates the speed on how fast your fruit goes through your brusher.
Okay, so is this the first thing that happens to apples pretty much after they get picked off the tree and brought over to this machine?
So they're picked off the tree, they're brought into the warehouse, they may be put into storages, cold storages, then they're brought out of the cold storages, they're wheeled in boxes, and then they are put onto this machine. So this is the first machine that they'd be going into.
All right, and then what happens next?
So now what we're doing at this point is we're sorting the fruit to what grade it would be. So if it'd be like an extra fancy, which that apple would probably have more color on it, it would be for its type, it would be to make sure there's no marks or anything on it that way, or your fancy grade, that's why you'd have a couple of different belts. If this machine had more sections in it, that what I call is on the packing line, you would have more of these belts that are here, so you could break up the different qualities of the apple.
Okay.
So right now, if we were dealing with extras and fancies, these two belt systems would do the work for me. You could put the fancies on one side of the machine, you could put the extras over on the other side of the machine. So if you would look at it, you see like the extras, which I'm using as an example here, a little bit brighter red, a little nicer and all that. When you're looking at over here on the fancies, they have a lot more green to them and that. That back in the day, and I'm not talking like in the 50s, we used to put almost everything, and what was required back then is not like what is required to be an extra or fancy today. The restrictions are much tighter today. It takes a lot more red in an apple, and the restrictions are just a lot tighter today than what it used to be.
All right, so if I were an apple sorter, the apples would come out of the polisher over there, I'd pick them up over here. Oh, look, it's red, so this one goes on the fancy one. If it's green, it goes, or not as red, it goes here. And then, well, we all know them, the bad apples, they go right up here.
So if you picked up an apple and, for instance, it's got a mark on it or something like that, and it wasn't going to make the grade, you would put it up on this belt up here, which would go down there and drop into a bin or a box back in the day. And then that fruit would be picked up, and you would take it to like a juice plant or to a peeler plant to be dried or something that way.
All right, and then from here they go over there.
To the packing line.
Let's head on over there and you can tell me more. So over here we have the singulator. What does that do?
Well, the singulator, what it does is just primarily when the fruit comes off of the belt here and goes into the singulator, it gets it down to where there's one apple at a time and it doesn't bunch it up. So there's only one apple that ends up in a cup. If you didn't have that, the force of these belts would push it and then you'd end up double cupping, and you don't want to have that because that'll give you the wrong sizing. These are a weight sizer, so it's weighing the apple.
All right, and then it moves on to the sizer. What happens on this cool looking machine?
Okay, on the sizer, there's two lanes on this one, and these are plastic cups. So an apple falls in this cup. After it leaves the singulator, it falls into this cup. This little mechanism right here is the sizing mechanism that actually controls this. So that on the end of these cups, there's a little finger that sits out, and it rides on a rail that is here. And when it gets to this mechanism that is right here, which this one is controlled by a spring, the heavier apples will fall up on the leading tubs, and the smaller apples, as it goes down, falls down on the far end tubs. So you could have your 64s and 72s up here, and your 80s and 88s, and then 100s and 13s, 25s, on down as far as 216s. If you're not sure what the apple size thing means, is say for instance that you had size 80s. That means that in that apple box, 1 bushel of apples, there would be 80 apples in that box to make up that bushel. If you had 113s, there would be 113 apples in that box to make up that same bushel. If you had 216s, there would be 216 apples in the box. So if you look at the numbers, the larger the number, the smaller the apple. So a 216 is like a 2 1/4 inch apple. It's a small apple. Today, we probably bag more of that up than putting it actually in a box in packing or that type of thing. It'll be in a bag. And those apples are used, the smaller ones, for a lot of school programs and things like that, to where the larger apples will go to the grocery stores and market.
All right, well, thank you for showing me this really cool machine. It's really great to be able to actually see how things used to be done. Let's go take a seat and talk some more.
Okay.
How long were you working in apples?
Well, I would say that I started I started as a little kid in apples with my dad on a farm. I mean, I was 6 years old, and I was out on a farm driving a tractor and involved in the harvesting and things like that. And of course, as we were kids out there, even as young, we changed sprinklers. We worked on the trees. We pruned. We did whatever we had to do on a farm. And I did all of this up until 1990.
Oh, wow.
So we were in the warehouse business up until 1990 when we sold out.
Okay. And so you mentioned that the industry has gotten a little bit more corporate. About when did that happen? Was that when you sold your farm, a little bit beforehand? When did all those sweeping changes happen?
It kept kind of moving that direction. I still live in the same house that I grew up in on the same farm.
Oh, wow.
And the thing is most of the kids that I grew up with, when they got older, they moved away. They didn't want to stay in the farming. And the parents that owned the farms wanted to get out of the business, and pretty soon a warehouse may buy that farm up, or some individual, and pretty soon they have 200 acres. Now they have 300 acres. So it finally got to where to really work it out and stay in the business well, you had to be in the warehouse side of it and on the growing side of it.
Okay.
The farmer used to take his fruit to a warehouse and they would pack their fruit. Today, a lot of the big warehouses own the orchards also.
Okay.
That day of having the farmer is kind of dwindling away. It's not as many. There's still, like Cowiche growers, there's still a co-op out there that takes care of the smaller farmers.
Okay. And I know you're not really working in the industry right now, but you were telling me about how currently technology is at a point where they can scan apples and decide whether they're able to go out into stores or not. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, back in these days when we were packing on like this equipment like what is right here, or back in the day when I was in that business with my dad, we didn't have that technology of doing that. It was all done by labor. You had sorters that would have to look at that apple and judge what it was and put it onto the line. It was the packers that were down there. They could see it and they could catch it and maybe take a bad apple out of it and all that. Now we have technology where we have color sorters. It's part of the machinery that is over there, and it can read that apple and get the color and see if it goes here, and it will guide it to where it's got to go. It's computer operated. This is all mechanically controlled, and
Okay.
today everything is done with a computer. They also have, and I don't know if I want to call it actually a laser system, but it's an eye that can actually penetrate and see through an apple to determine if it's decayed or a problem internally and all of that, and kick that apple out of the system so it doesn't go down. It's getting to where the piecework that was done on a machine like this back in the day is now starting to go away, and now with tray fill lines, that where the fruit comes down and rolls on a tray, you just have people there that just drop those trays into the boxes. So you're using technology of equipment to do the jobs that the human used to do, but you're packing a lot more fruit today than what you packed. Back in the day when I was packing with my dad, on a good day, we could pack 80 bins of apples a day. Now, we were a small warehouse and we packed 80 bins. That's 25 box bin, so we would pack 80 of those. Today, you have a warehouse that'll pack 800 to 1,000 bins a day.
Wow.
So the industry has changed that much.
Okay. You did mention that when you were younger, you did used to do a little bit of everything, whatever was needed. Did you have any favorite job to do?
You know, when I look back at all of it, I mean, all of it was just work. I mean, what you had to do. But the thing is our warehouse was such a close-knit family. It wasn't just a job place that you went to. Because again, you got to remember, we didn't run, every day, 12 months out of the year. It was more seasonal. So a lot of our workers that came back then, and this is like in the 60s and even in the 70s, were housewives that would come there and they would work the months that we would have to do it. And when we finally got into CA storages, the controlled atmosphere storages, that prolonged our season a little bit longer. Now with all of that, We have apples year round, to where it used to be more seasonable. Was there a favorite job? You know, we were so close with each other in that warehouse when we were working. Not only did we work together in that warehouse, maybe on the weekend we went fishing together. I remember my mom and dad, they went dancing with some of the people that worked for us. I mean, they went dancing on Friday, Saturday night with them. So we were like a family. We weren't so much like just workers that had a job. We cared about what we did. Not saying that people don't care about their jobs today, but we were very close-knit back then.
All right, well, thank you so much, John, for speaking with me today. I really
bet.
appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching this episode of Roots of the Valley. These episodes are going to be coming out on the first and third Sunday of each month, so be sure to stay paying attention to our YouTube channel, and you can watch them as soon as they come out. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you. I really